Mike Levine, how's it going these days?
It's going great. It's got a new album out and on the promotional run, so to speak.
And soon you're going to be on the famous Eddie Trunk show.
Yes, that's true. Gil and I were in New York on Monday and Tuesday this week, and probably knocked out 40, 50 different interviews, via satellite and tapes and you name it, all over America.
Would you say the interview days have changed since the 80s?
Yeah, there's more what I would call, I guess, the consolidators. That you do one interview and then they send them all. They send the interview out to radio stations, and then the radio stations voice them like they were doing the interview. So it's a lot of syndicated shows, and let's face it, radio's a lot different than the 80s right now. So it's a totally different ballgame.
Well, we need to hear it from Mike Levine sometimes from Triumph. With the new album, Greatest Hits Remixed, what process did you guys go through? Did you find the old master tapes?
Yeah, we had to. There was we had a lot of them in our vaults. We had to send out and find some other ones. It wasn't really that difficult. So we went right back to the original 2-inch masters and stripped everything down, started off with the drums and added the bass and the guitars just like you would with a brand new record. So it was really a neat experience to go through because a lot of that stuff was early records were recorded in the 70s where there really wasn't much technology to deal with. And now you've got a whole different world. So everything got transferred into Pro Tools and sonically, like, the mixes sound incredible. I mean, I just heard them on the radio yesterday here in Toronto, and I couldn't believe how great it sounded on the radio. It's one thing in the studio, but you really mix for the radio, and this came out fantastic.
I noticed too the drums, are more alive, with the reverbs and stuff.
Yeah, sure. Everything's, especially on the low end, everything on the low end, I love because, back in those days, in the olden days, as I call them, you couldn't load up the low end because you were mixing for vinyl records. So the low end would cause the grooves to move too much if you packed it on, and you get distortion and skips. So you really had to be soft on the low end. Now it doesn't matter really. You can just pack it on, and it's just booming. It really sounds. As a bass player, I really like it.
So you guys still respected to keep it original in sense. You guys didn't change too much stuff in it, did you?
No, we didn't change anything. I mean, there was absolutely zero changes to anything. It's just the original tracks were the original tracks. The engineer we hired to mix it, Rich Chicky, it was a huge Triumph fan, a great guitar player, and also a great engineer and a really good mixer. So I had ran into him in a liquor store. We were both planning to get drunk, I guess, and I didn't know he was back in Toronto because he had been in L.A. for a long time. And so we went for coffee and sat down and chatted about stuff in general. And he said, "What are you up to?" And I said, "Well, we're going to do this. We're going to remix a bunch of Triumph songs for a new Greatest Hits." And he said, "I need that job. I have to have it. I'm the only one that you could hire for that. I know every lick, every drum fill, I know everything to do with every Triumph song. So I'm your guy. I have to do it." So we ended up hiring Rich, and he did a phenomenal job. He kept the integrity of the songs. Like I was a little nervous about the possibility some of the magic would go away from the songs because there's, it's just the way it's done, whether it's old or new. You need to make magic with the mixes, and Rich did that. So I think we should win a Grammy Award for it.
And Richard Chycki, comes from a big music background too, working with Rush and all that stuff.
Yeah, he worked with Rush and Aerosmith, and he played in bands around Toronto for years too. So he's a great musician, a great guy, a great engineer. So I'm glad we chose him.
The DVD part of it, did you guys touch into making it clearer or something in a sense?
Yeah, oh yeah, that was a lot of work. As if you've seen it, like all that video was shot in such a way it's for old style TV, right? It's
right.
Like the 4:3 ratio, the box as I call it. And just before we were ready to go to final with it, somebody turned us on to a system where you could stretch it into 16:9 aspect ratio for the new TVs that wouldn't make you look like squash you and make you look like NFL linebackers. So it turned out really cool. I mean, it's just like, we're not little fat guys, and all that old footage looks very contemporary. And plus, most of it was also mixed in 5.1 surround. So, if you got a nice system, it's going to sound awesome.
And the process, was it longer to do that than, remixing the CD itself?
Yeah, the DVD took a lot longer, just because it's, when you're dealing with old footage, it's very difficult to keep the integrity of the entire DVD. So every time you added something, basically you had to reload the entire content of the DVD back into the editing system. So, it took a long time. The editor that we worked with, Cam LeBlanc, he spent hours and hours and hours and hours, hundreds of hours on it.
And throughout all the years of Triumph, is there still stuff that we've never heard, unreleased material and footage also?
There is some that we couldn't find on the footage level. It's we hunted and actually after we put the DVD to bed, one of the hunters came down with a big box full of stuff that we really haven't gone through, but I'm sure it's some of the older stuff we were looking for that we couldn't find. So yeah, we got some of that. There's really not much audio unreleased. Because we used to edit our songs as we were recording, so if it was really no good, we never finished it. We just said that's lousy right now. It's not going to get any better. So we just stopped working on it and move on. But there is some really embarrassing stuff that we did record that I think one day I'll put out an album called Triumph Bloopers.
Will Triumph Bloopers go platinum, do you think?
I don't know. I really don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to listen to it. Don't want to see it. But I think the fans might like it. Maybe we'll make it available online only or something.
I mean, for the fans, they usually for the hard fans that always want all the footage, that would be good. Or the songs also.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. They certainly. I mean, this whole project was really to satisfy the fans and give them something back, because everybody for the last 15 years, every email that comes to our website, every time we do an interview, every time you run into a fan on the street, so why don't you guys put out a new greatest hits? Come on, like with a nice booklet, and just give us some more stuff. So that was really how it all began. This whole thing was for the fans. It wasn't really for us, so to speak.
You guys going to be on tour soon to promote this also, or just doing, radio interviews?
Yeah, a tour is not in the cards right now, although we're not ruling out the possibility of going out next year.
How far would you go touring, you think, this and like nowadays? California?
Well, if we geared up, we do Canada and the States and probably festivals in Europe. That would be the point, man. But you're on the road, you might as well stay on the road.
Right. So basically this album has been released short period of time, and is it in all record stores right now? It
should be, yep. It's available everywhere as far as I know. I haven't heard it's not available, so it's been out, while we're talking. I guess we're taping here, right? So
right.
It came out May 18th, and it's apparently, I heard from the record company that it's selling very well, so everybody's happy with it so far.
Do you find today's process of, releasing is a little bit different than, back in the 80s?
Oh, totally different.
Because with the internet and stuff?
Yeah, with the internet, and you have to prepare everything for the iTunes for downloads, and which you never had to deal with before. And as we all know, the state of the industry, people don't seem to be buying as many CDs as they used to, and a lot of record stores are out of business. So it's kind of it's really a different world from back then, because the only avenue you had for distribution then was record stores.
Did you collect any guitars and basses throughout the years? Or
not really. I have a few, but I could never find a bass that was better than my old jazz that I've had since I was a kid. And that bass, it's like, it's it's a second wife to me. It's just so easy to play, and it's light, and I just love it. Every other bass I put on, it's like weighs about 800 pounds, and my shoulders kind of get hurt. But I've got another Jazz, a couple of Precisions. Fender was my bass of choice, 90% of the time. Companies would want me to use their basses and endorse it, and I just said I can't. I'm not going to use it on stage. I'm using my Fender, and that's it.
And, throughout all the years, would you say, you got one specialized bass that's, appearing on all the albums and stuff?
Yeah, that's my Fender Jazz. That's my baby. It's everywhere. I used the Warwick on a few songs on one of the albums. I can't remember which one. And what else? I used something else just for a song because it had a really good sound. It was a Lado, a custom-made bass. There's a guy named Levine in Toronto. So I used that for a couple of songs or one song. Like I say, I can't remember which one, but yeah, everything else was my Jazz and old Ampeg SVT amps.
How old would that amp be, would you say?
Oh, Jesus. I got it back in I guess in the 70s.
And it's still serving you great.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you just tube it, but which is not cheap these days. But I have a stash of them because the tube is going the way of the dodo bird too. They're really hard to find, and the biggest tube company went out of business in California last year. So I had a buddy of mine go and just load up on tubes for my amp because, like I say, they're hard to find.
So for music, what are you listening to these days, besides the Greatest Hits Triumph album?
I'm not listening to that anymore.
You're done with that.
I'm a little tired of it. I got to hear it on the radio, and I'm happy now, and if I never hear it again, I'll be ecstatic.
Yeah.
But you always get a thrill when you hear music on the radio, no matter what. It's always a nice buzz. What else am I listening to? I have trouble with a lot of the new bands. It's just if I just tell my friends, if you find a new band that has a guitar solo on, and it just like a guitar solo on one of their songs, I'll go buy the CD.
Good point.
And that's hard to find.
You're absolutely correct, Mike.
Yeah, it's just I'm sick of thrash chords. It's just three guitar players playing exactly the same thing and grinding. It's like to me, there's no creativity in music anymore. It's just I don't know what you call it, but it certainly doesn't turn me on. I mean, the last band I got excited about was Nickelback when they first came out. I'm still excited by them because they write good songs, they put on a great performance live, they give the audience what they want, and they're the biggest selling act in rock and roll. I wonder why, but everybody hates them apparently.
Yeah, that's a really strange way. Everybody hates them, but they're selling like crazy.
Well, obviously not everybody hates them.
That's true.
They got legions of fans. I mean, the media and radio may hate them, people in the industry, but I still don't know why anybody would hate them. They're a good, solid band, and great songwriters, and a fun act to go see. So I don't see what's wrong with that.
Is it just a really funny way to look at it? The people probably do enjoy it, but don't admit it, I guess.
Maybe, yeah. It's not hip to say, I like Nickelback. People go sneaking in their concerts or put on masks, so no one will recognize them.
When you're, remixing this CD, did you guys have memories of how you guys recorded these albums?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's more so on the DVD when we're working on that. But, for me, because I was really, I was the producer de facto of the band. So I did 90% of the work. So I have a lot more memories than the other guys do. And just the, trying to get a good performance out of Rick or, and playing with his head, trying to get him to hit those high notes sometimes. And he wanted to go home and I wouldn't let him. And, it's just like, it was just, the fun times and the real tough times. Not easy to make records. So, you have your punch outs, but you have your fun times too.
When you guys recorded the, big classics, did it all jive together quickly? Or was it something you guys really worked hard to, get the songwriting process?
Well, it's, once we start, you spend your entire life making your first record, and then you've got, 6 months to make your second one. So it's a lot of work, and a lot of bands never get past that. I think the key album is your third one because although acts today don't really get a chance to go that far usually, but back then it was like, okay, first album you're just learning, second album you got to really, give something to your fans that bought the first one and be consistent. And the next album is the one that it's the one you really wanted to really break through with. And you had a good fan base at that point, and it was built up, and you better deliver something really good. And I think we did, like on the Just a Game album. We had two really good songs on that line. So that album broke the band through big time.
Another thing too, I remember seeing, let's say 5-6 years ago, you guys started releasing DVDs, of certain concerts. One in Halifax, Oz Festival. Do you find the fans really enjoyed this stuff? All of a sudden, after all these years, it's being released again.
Well, yeah, especially the US Festival, because we have the only real footage that could be in any act that performed there. And that was part of our deal. Our agent negotiated that we had the rights to the footage. So, that was, the biggest festival other than Woodstock in American history. And, loaded with headliners. I mean, the lineup was incredible, and, 500,000 fans or however many were there. So it's, we got great reaction off that. Plus we got, my phone was ringing off the hook from record companies going, how the heck could you put that out? Where'd you get the footage? How come we can't get our Van Halen footage or our Ozzy footage? I said, I don't know. We own the footage, so we had it. I can't help you out there. Phone Steve Wozniak at Apple.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then the Halifax one that was filmed back in 80. Was that the Thunder 7 tour? I don't even remember. I think it was. We decided to put that out on DVD as well, just because again the fans wanted some concert stuff, and that was really that we had shot before. So I wish we would have done more, but it's pretty cool, and for its time, it just certainly gives you a good impression of the stage show and how the band really rocked on stage.
Whose idea was it to bring the cameras to film like shows like that, like in Halifax, let's say?
Well, that was in conjunction with Much Music.
Okay.
They wanted to do it, and we said, okay, well, you can do it, you can broadcast it, but we own the footage to do with as we want commercially. So it was the same kind of idea as the US Festival. It was, you can broadcast the heck you want to do with it, but we retain the right to put it out on of our performance.
Don't you find it funny that bands, that played the US Festival don't own their own rights, that they would just not look into that?
Well, back, that was kind of early on, and I guess, they weren't thinking, or their managers weren't thinking, or their agents weren't thinking. We were pack rats, so we tried to get a hold of somebody. If there was a photographer shooting the band, we wanted to get the pictures and hold them, and he could sell them if he wanted to. That was fine, but we still retained the rights to use them on our albums and whatever.
Right.
So we collected everything, every live show we ever recorded. We have the tapes for, so it's just it was kind of a philosophy we had. We want to have and own everything that says Triumph.
It's a brilliant idea, and you guys have it now, and you guys can release this stuff.
Yeah, well, and then we can still delve into the archives, and it's really cool because as technology changes, it's a whole different world all the time. You can make it better. You can keep adding new stuff that you find to it. Like there's a bootleg on the DVD that's really lousy because it's a bootleg. Somebody shot it on a couple of kids, I guess, were shooting it, and they I guess it's somewhere we seized it, or a federal marshal seized it, and we found it. We found it in our archives and went, you know what, fans are going to love this, and it's really the only footage we could find of that song, which was really the centerpiece of our stage show for years.
Mm-hmm.
So, we figured, what the heck, even though it's kind of lousy and the audio is not very good, so what? I mean, it's a cool thing.
Mike Levine, pleasure talking to you, and good luck with Greatest Hits Remixed, Triumph, the TriumphMusic.com website also.
Very good. Thanks a lot, Jason.
Excellent weekend. We'll talk to you another day someday.
Okay, I look forward to it.
All right, Mike. Have a good evening.
Okay, thanks.